I always tell people who say they have a vested interest in working with libraries, and I was like, do you like people? Because if you don't like people, this is not the job
That's
for
right.
you. And I don't mean that in a way of people pleasing. I mean, like, do you just generally like people? Because when a patron walks into your library and they see you sitting or standing behind that desk, they don't know if you went to library school or not. They don't know if you worked there 1 day, 1 year, 1 hour. It doesn't matter to them. You're here, you work there. They're looking for your
Mhm.
help. And so you have to be the type of person that can take on those challenges every single day. And a lot of it comes down to if you have that spirit of service. Um, I know a lot of librarians, like
Mhm.
librarians, we are not in this for the money.
Yeah.
We are not in this for the money. We are in it because we have a spirit to serve, and a spirit to give people of all walks of life free and open, unfettered access to information. Libraries are catalysts for change, and they are nestled most of the time within the community specifically to cause change, to be that beacon of hope, to be the place where you can go and have a discussion with someone who is from a completely different walk of life and walk out with a new perspective. Or not, because that's happened too,
Mhm.
right? Where we've held town halls and people butt heads, but the mutual respect is always there. And it saddens me that our current administration and people who are radicalized by this current administration are intentionally trying to ban materials. They're trying to sabotage how people get access to
Mhm.
information. The media has always been controlled. We know this, but it's blatant now, right? It saddens me. And there are still so many people who are fortunate to have their libraries still open and not yet impacted by the shuttering of ALA and IMLS and limiting the amount of funding that they get, if they get any funding at all in the future. There are still people who are out there fighting the good fight for that. Many of them are my
Yeah.
friends, and it's getting harder and harder for them to maintain. But I also like to think of myself as giving the hard truths, but also encouraging people like, if you have that spirit to serve, if libraries are your calling, go to school, get the degree, because we need more people who look like me and more people who look like you.
Yeah.
That it's been said before, but do it scared. Do the hard thing scared, right? I noticed that there was something missing in that niche librarian Black girl born and raised in the South, dealing with things um, from the perspective of librarianship. I started by just kind of making fun of the library field. Within jokes and humor, there is some monochrome of truth.
Mhm.
And that's that's what it was. I was like, well, this is missing. I think I'm funny. Maybe other people will think I'm funny too, or maybe other people will feel that way. And I would get like a couple thousand views, which, to me was like, oh, I'm doing it. The very first time I went viral, it's because I listed the statistic for, I think it was something like, did you know the library field is 89% white? A statistic that has not changed since 1993, 92. But I used the bumper sound from the show Rugrats, the original one, where they,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so because it was so short,
Mhm.
right? Like it forced people to they recognize the sound. So that's one view. They're reading the words, that's two. They're looking at me and then rereading the words, that's three. And then they're reading more words, which is, we need librarians of color, like join the field, ask me how, something like, I don't even remember what it was. But that thing took off like a rocket. I think I quoted for Black librarians at that time was only like 7.5%. Like it has not broken into a double digit statistic.
Mhm.
And that's a personal passion too, right? I want to figure out a way to contribute to making that single digit percentage for Black librarians a double digit, even if it's just the flat out 10%. It's very hard to do that right now with the state of the field and the state of our world. Um, I would say do it scared. Just put it out there, see what happens. I was very fortunate to have Tracy D. Hall as my first guest, and she literally said, she was like, I'm doing it because you asked me. I'm doing it because I want to help. Again, that spirit of
That's
service,
right. That's
that
right.
wanting to help. Do what you love and do it often. If it's in you to do it, just do it and let the chips fall where they may, because guaranteed somebody somewhere, whether locally, nationally, globally, will find meaning in whatever it is that you do, as long as you put your heart and soul and passion behind it. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. And oral histories have been in existence since the beginning of time. And we are, in essence, losing the tradition of storytellers. We are losing the traditions of griots. We are losing um, those historical recountings for whatever reason. There are a whole host of reasons. And I've talked about this on an episode of Black in the Stacks, but are we doing a good job documenting and maintaining our own histories, right? As they are actively being either censored or erased entirely. If you have the ability to do so, share your story. If you are not the person who wants their story shared, but you want to talk to people who are willing and have that ability to draw those stories out, do that. Do the hard thing scared. Do the hard thing scared. Put it out there. You never know what'll happen.
This is Social Justice Origin Stories. I'm your host, Rolando Thompkins-Jones. Social Justice Origin Stories is a storytelling project that highlights personal stories and defining moments that have inspired individuals and organizations to labor for equity and social justice. Through truth-telling, the honest sharing of their experiences, storytellers teach us about themselves, enabling us to learn about ourselves and our world through their stories. By reconnecting with pivotal moments of activation in their lives, they invite us to do the same. At Social Justice Origin Stories, we believe that there's power in storytelling and lived experience is experience. There's room enough for all of us to do this work. There are many ways to contribute, and our contributions don't need to be the same. We can enter and remain engaged in the work using the gifts that are special to us while supporting others and using theirs. We have the capacity to grow and change for the better when exposed to new information and experiences. We believe in our inherent worth and capabilities, and we possess the power to inspire and create change in ourselves and others. We can transcend the confines of the status quo to imagine and design more equitable and humanizing systems. Thank you all for joining us. I am really appreciative of having our guest today, Marquita Gooch. Thank you for being here to share some of your organizational history, some of your social justice origin stories with us. So one of the things Marquita is going to be talking with us about today is her podcast, Black in the Stacks. It's a podcast that explores the inspiring stories of librarians, authors, advocates, and more from the African American and African diaspora. Just really appreciative of you being here. I have a big appreciation for librarians. I talk to librarians through social justice origin stories. I talk to teachers. One of the things that I'm reflecting on myself growing up in Detroit public schools is I was talking to a couple of guests actually, about just realizing like it was so significant for me in my experience in having the majority of my teachers, librarians that I encountered in my K through 12 experience growing up in Detroit public schools, being Black, just a wealth of knowledge and resources pouring into me. So I always talk about when I think about education and access to information, I think about like there's the overall curriculum that we get, but then there's like, some people refer to it as the hidden curriculum, or there's some passive things that happen as a result of experiencing things. And so I just realized more so later on in life than I did at the time, just the significance of that. And the library was a really important part of my experience growing up too. Black librarians helping with information, pointing me out to different books, put me on to different authors, and particularly Black authors, and that was really significant. I think about the Read campaign, with the actors and Elmo and all that, different people on there, just encouraging folks to read. I just have a lot of fond memories of the library growing up. And even now, as a parent myself now, just appreciating libraries not only as an important source of often free and public information, like in my mind, like one of the last kind of spaces and places where folks are able to readily get that free and public access to information, but then also just a source in the community, different events that, hey, you go, you attend, you meet your neighbors, you meet folks. And so there's a lot of great things from the library, experiences that I have and honor that I have of the librarians as a profession and the work that they do. So I've actually found you, Marquita, on LinkedIn. I think you had shared your podcast and there was a link. And so the particular episode I'm referring to is called From Residencies to Realities, a Black Male Librarian's Call for Change. I was just listening to the episode and your guest that you had on there, just speaking to some really important experiences from the perspective of being a Black male librarian, different challenges to the field, and raising some important questions. And so yeah, I listened to that. And not only that, I listened to what you were trying to do with your podcast and uplifting those narratives and those stories. That's a part of social justice origin stories. There's room enough for everybody. It's room enough for all of us. It's really about how are we using our gifts to best position ourselves and best move and best act in ways that are affirming to us, but then also helpful to other people. So it's really about that. And so yeah, this is an example, I think, of, and I appreciate your work of using your experiences, using your gifts, using things that you're passionate about to uplift those stories, particularly of librarians, authors, advocates from the African American and African diaspora. And so I'm saying all that to say, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm glad that you've joined us.
I am Marquita Gooch. I am a librarian. I am a mom. I am a wife. I am a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend. I am a leader in some regards. I am a follower. You're always supposed to want to be a leader. Well, the only way I became a leader is because I followed other great leaders. And I credit a lot of who I am to, yes, my family, but my mentors, truly. I cannot speak more highly of having a mentor, especially someone who has already gone through those trials and tribulations that can give you well-intentioned guidance. In my case, unfiltered guidance. My primary mentor, and I won't mention their name because I haven't cleared that with them yet, but they know who they are. But they were the primary reason I got into library school, because those GRE scores were not a thing. There are certain institutions with librarianship or that have degrees for librarianship where GRE scores are required. A lot of them are waiving that now because they just need people in the field. But at the time that I graduated from library school in 2011, you needed a GRE score to get in. I've never done well on standardized testing. I have my own opinions about standardized testing and how biased they are.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let me just do it. Let me get it out of the way, see what happens. And yeah, it's high enough for them to be like, okay, well, she's kind of smart, right? She's got an undergraduate degree, but we need somebody to vouch for her. And that was my mentor. And I was led into library school on probationary status. My first semester, I got straight A's. And they were just like, oh, okay. Well, welcome to our program. So yeah, that's a longer than short version. The short version is I'm still trying to figure out who I am. The things that I listed are, yes, a part of me and a part of my everyday life and how I, earn a living and express my creativity and all that. But I don't know. And I don't think I ever will know or be able to kind of surmise all that I am and all that I encompass. And I don't want to. There's an author that I follow, Demetria L. Lucas, who has repeatedly said, if you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you're not growing or learning, then you're dying. And I'm halfway through a standard life expectancy for Black women. I don't want to die anytime soon. So I always want to learn something new each and every day. That's what I strive to do. So the who am I, what am I, unknown or yet to be determined, still exploring.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's like normalizing that. There's someone out there listening that'll hear that. And it's like, all right, sometimes some of us out there, we need that permission to be like, it's okay to not know too. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing this. I often use this quote from Corey Bush to get things started. The quote says, many of us do not choose to become activists. We are activated. Like, what are some things that activated you?
I think I have always had a spirit of service, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. I would volunteer a couple of places. I felt of service even in high school. I did RTCL for years. I did not go into the military. That was not my calling. That was not a calling for me. But thank you to everyone who served. I do come from a military family, but it didn't feel right. for me at that time to go into the military. I did ROTC all 4 years. One of the things we did in ROTC was a thing called Empty Stocking Fund, where we would fill bags of with toys for underserved communities, so that they could provide toys for their kids or even clothes if they were newborns and infants. There was like formula, all that kind of stuff. So that type of service. I was on different committee in my earlier library career, that type of service. But I think what really sort of radicalized me um, in that way was I was lost, right? Like I had finished my undergraduate degree in business. I was working at a job that I kind of liked, but I knew that it wasn't fulfilling. And a friend of mine said to me, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but she said to me, she was like, is this, like, referring to the job that we were both at? She was like, is this all you want? Like, is this where you, like,
Mm.
do you see yourself here really? And I was like, well, I don't know. I kind of like it. And she was like, I don't see that for you. So I don't want you to see that for you. Go do something else. And I was like, okay. We had some managerial shifts at the location that I was at. The work environment became uncomfortable. And I was like, I got to do something else. I got to get out of here. Fortunately for me, my aunt worked for one of the largest library systems in the state of Georgia. I was lamenting to her, and she was like, the library is hiring. They're only hiring part time, though. Is that going to work for you? And I was like, I'll make it work. So I apply, I interview at like 2 or 3 different places. The one location that did hire me was about an hour and some change from where I lived. So I was like, gotta make it work. So I would do my regular job, which wasn't quite full-time hours, but close enough. So I would do that job from about 7:30 in the morning till 3. And then from 3 to 4, I would drive way up to the library. And then from 4 to whenever the library closed and we cleared all the patrons out, I did that. I did that for 11 and a half
All
months.
right.
For 11 and a half months, I worked 2 jobs until I was like, I like this library stuff. I don't know why I like it, but I do. And again, I had no idea that I was going to fast forward several years later, be an award-winning librarian. But in that moment, I was like, this kind of feels right, but I don't know what that is. And it wasn't until, like I mentioned earlier, that I met my mentor. My mentor is not only who I credit with getting me into library school, but he is also the person who gave me my first full-time library opportunity. I don't think that I would be where I am if he had not taken a
Mhm.
chance. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. I consider myself to be an observational person, so I didn't come in hitting the ground running. I came in, I got the lay of the land. I learned our patrons. I learned our process. I learned his process and what he anticipated from his staff. Um, and when I felt like I could make a difference, I went and I asked a question. I was like, well, hey, I noticed this problem, and here's how I think I can fix it. Do I have your permission to go ahead and fix it? And that's kind of how I approached things until I got comfortable enough to be like, okay, this is a problem. I took care of it. Here's how I fixed it. But yeah, so I don't know if there was a single moment. Obviously, we working in the public library, it is never a dull day. We deal with people from all walks of life. And full disclosure for everyone who's listening and or watching, I left libraries June would have been 3 years ago for a whole host of reasons. I left traditional libraries 3 years ago. Um, but while I was working in them, I saw so many people who were unhoused. I worked with people who were underserved. We worked with people who were, in my opinion, elitists, right? Who, well, I pay taxes and my taxes pay your salary. And so my rebuttal to that was, well, I need a raise. So
Hey,
pay more taxes.
hey, hey.
You know, if you're going to weaponize that against
Hmm.
me, I am a public servant, yes, but I don't have to take that, right?
Yeah,
Too,
that
you
doesn't
know,
mean you can just come in there and talk to and treat the staff any kind of way. It does not mean that.
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, in dealing with all kinds of people, you learn to adapt, you adjust, you accommodate people. And I watched my mentor handle like the most irate people. I mean, they were cussing left and right, attempting, throwing
Hmm.
things. And his demeanor was just so even kiltered, so calm. And I was like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
I want to be that. I want to be the person that other people can look to and be like, I want to mirror that and I want to take that into my life. But also working with those different kinds of people, they come in with a host of problems that they expect us to solve. I always tell people who say they have a vested interest in working with libraries, and I was like, do you like people? Because if you don't like people, this is not the job
That's
for
right.
you. And I don't mean that in a way of people pleasing. I mean, like, do you just generally like people? Because when a patron walks into your library and they see you sitting or standing behind that desk, they don't know if you went to library school or not. They don't know if you worked there 1 day, 1 year, 1 hour. It doesn't matter to them. You're here, you work there. They're looking for your help. And so you have to be the type of person that can take on those challenges every single day. And a lot of it comes down to if you have that spirit of service. I know a lot of librarians, we are not in this for the money.
Yeah.
We are not in this for the money. We are in it because we have a spirit to serve, and a spirit to give people of all walks of life free and open, unfettered access to information. Libraries are catalysts for change, and they are nestled most of the time within the community specifically to cause change, to be that beacon of hope, to be the place where you can go and have a discussion with someone who is from a completely different walk of life and walk out with a new perspective. Or not, because that's happened too, right? Where we've held town halls and people butt heads, but the mutual respect is always there. And it saddens me that our current administration and people who are radicalized by this current administration are intentionally trying to ban materials. They're trying to sabotage how people get access to information. The media has always been controlled. We know this, but it's blatant now, right? It saddens me to do that. And there are still so many people who are fortunate to have their libraries still open and not yet impacted by the shuttering of ALA and IMLS and limiting the amount of funding that they get, if they get any funding at all in the future. There are still people who are out there fighting the good fight for that. Many of them are my friends, and it's getting harder and harder for them to maintain. But I also like to think of myself as giving the hard truths, but also encouraging people like, if you have that spirit to serve, if libraries are your calling, go to school, get the degree, because we need more people who look like me and more people who look like you.
Yeah.
The episode that you referenced earlier features my good brother, Jason Alston. Like he, if you find him on social media, Soul City Sigma, his opinions and his outlook and his mindset are the type of, radicalized power that, again, this administration is trying to shutter, and he does not unfiltered, right?
Yeah.
But his views and his perspectives are valid because he's not making this stuff up. Like he's experienced it and we've seen it and we are still seeing it. I would not say that there's one thing. There's a bunch of things that radicalize me. I don't like it when someone cuts me off in traffic. There's not a whole lot I can do about it, but I don't like it. I'm not going to go chase them down or anything like that. But I can go take a defensive driving class and educate myself to protect me and my family and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, that calling and that spirit to want to serve and be of service is what keeps me grounded and connected, and a large part of why I started Black in the Stack.
Everything you said, when you said like, hey, do you like people? Like, do you really like people? Or, that having that service, do you like people? And also, can you be with people at various points of their life experience? Like you say, you coming in, they see you behind that desk and, you're there to help them and support them. That still does not mean that you get to talk and treat people any kind of way. But also, can you be with people at sometimes, we don't know the days that they've had before they came in, and so the service, the support that you provide them could help them in some way. Yeah, it's still, like I said, still don't take away what we said before, but also just recognizing it's a variety of things that are going on out there. And can you be with people at different moments in their lives? Does your service extend to being with people in those moments? And the episode you were talking about, like, whoa. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing too. There are overarching narratives, and then there are narratives within these larger stories that don't get told all the time, don't get spotlighted and highlighted. And I so appreciated your guest sharing in there because, like you said, unfiltered, not hiding, not using euphemisms and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that I thought was really important about that particular episode is I think in his sharing, he raised some complications there around like what happens when we use that authentic voice and what happens when not everybody does that, right? The different trajectories and stuff. He was dropping some names, and I don't think he was being disrespectful in doing that, but highlighting how
Correct.
different people are responded to when you're not coming with that honesty in that way. Yeah, because I remember, I got to listen to it again, but what I got from it is like, hey, do what you do. And not all of us, particularly not all of us Black men in the library, are going to have that response. And there's room for this over here too that I'm bringing, you know? And so I just appreciated his sharing, and then also how that's connected to your work of just uplifting these narratives. Because I think in the description of that episode, it said, like, let me make sure I say this. It said, don't play now. Well, it basically said, I was pulling up on my phone, but I didn't want to start playing. But it basically said, you know, we're not a monolith. Black librarians are not a monolith. And I think that was a great example of demonstrating the differences and the complications that exist within that. You wanted to talk about the pitfalls and dynamics of being a representative of a library system and not being able to speak freely without fear of retaliation versus now you're free and you're able to be more vocal. The pitfalls and dynamics of representative of the library system, but still not completely able to speak freely without retaliation.
One, I've seen it in action. So I've seen where library staff worker, paraprofessional has raised concerns to a person in charge. And at the time, that person who raised those concerns may have been a person of favor with the people in charge. And once they, for lack of better words, call them out about certain things, that favor starts to dwindle. It's not instant, it's gradual, right? So maybe this person used to be on every email chain, right? And then 2 weeks go by and you notice like, hey, well, where's such and such? Well, I'm going to forward this to such, I'm going to forward it to them. Or maybe I shouldn't, right? Like they're off for a reason, but are they? But then we get into larger discussions and the things that are being covered in that email are asked out loud. And the person who's left off of them is the focal point. Well, why don't you have the answers? Why can't you respond to this? Why didn't you do da 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 da? And they're like, well, I didn't know. Like I can't do something that I'm not aware of. Do you know what I mean? So I've seen that happen. And then the favor dwindles. Their level of authority, their level of independence, their level of power within the system also starts to dwindle. And you start to see them less and less and less. And then eventually they're just gone. And you're like, well, what happened? They were doing such great work. Why did they go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then to see it, but then months later to turn around and experience it is a whole different thing. Because I saw it, I could instantly recognize what happened. And even in that process, I was like, oh no, this will not be me. This will not be me. Formulating a plan to get out, formulating a plan to be able to, well, you know what? I can list all the things that I've done in the 5.5 years plus that I've worked at this specific system. I can list all my accolades. I can list all the things that I brought to the system overall. What really can you do, right? Because if you take the termination route, it's going to raise flags. Like if I'm just gone, it's going to raise flags. The fact that I resigned when I did at what essentially amounted to some people would say peak of my career, which kind of to me is insulting.
What you mean? Peak?
What do you mean peak? Like
Peak.
you're saying it like I've capped out. No, that was a step, right? Like everything else were building blocks to get to this step, right? Like going to school, working part-time those 11.5 months, then working full-time, then getting promoted repeatedly, taking a risk and going and being a school librarian in DC, right? All of those were components of building to get to this step of Georgia Librarian of the Year, first Black Georgia Librarian of the Year. Technically first, only, and last, but that's a different conversation for another day.
I feel you though. I know. Yep. Now the times
So
we're in, yeah, things have shifted there.
they're shifting. But yeah, like seeing it and then experiencing it, I was like, I can't, I feel stifled. I am a creative. If I have something that's in my head and it's nagging at me, I will figure out a way to get it out. But I
Yeah.
visioned for my Cowboy Carter outfit because it was very Black America to me. And so my show was in Atlanta, Falcons, Eagles, like birds represent a whole bunch of things. The red, black, and then we do it for the red, the black, the
Come on.
and then, the quote from Ashley Bryan, beautiful blackbird. But yeah, like I had a vision for that. I am not a designer. I am not a fashionista. Like I'm the girl that's gonna match her shirt to her shoes. Like I'm a sandwich outfit kind of girl. Leave me alone. I'm not mixing patterns and all that. That's not who I am, right? Like fashion is such a foreign concept to me, but I'm be cute. But that was an expression of something that I had this vision in my head. I had to get it out. And that's what was happening in the system. I had a vision for where that library system should sit. And I sat and I wrote it out. And the things that kept me up at night were not necessarily the things that were in my job description. Not necessarily, like other duties assigned.
Yeah.
That's how they get you. The stuff that kept me up at night, the things that I wanted to work on to improve that system and make it better, that's what kept me up at night. That spirit of serving. At the time, I was in an administrative position, a leadership position. I like to think that I was a trusted administrator. And I was very open with people who were previously my peers, who overnight became my subordinates. That was an adjustment, but I never let it never made me feel like I was on a pedestal and that they were beneath me. Like, no, I managed 2 branches. One manager called and was like, hey, unorthodox request, but can you do it? They were extremely short-staffed. All they needed was a body to run lunches, right? And they were like, I don't want to call. Like, it took forever for me to call because I just didn't want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, you need help. I'm your administrator. I'm going to go help. Do you know I got chewed out for that?
For helping them.
Because I got chewed out. And not only that, but it was later documented as a negative in one of my reviews. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I went to help the people who looked to me for help. And you're telling me that I shouldn't have done that?
Right.
That I should have taken a person from a branch that's already super short-staffed, right? They have enough people, but you want me to take one from there so this one gets covered and now they have to figure it out so I can sit in my desk and do the same work that I can do while I'm helping someone. You're telling me that I cannot speak to outside, potential sponsors, right? Like you're telling me that I can't go and talk to them without including you after the fact. Well, I met them while I was out and they know me because of the programs that I've done, the initiatives that I started, the awards that I've won. They know me. But I teach with them.
You said trusted and they know you.
See me. But I can't take it further, right? Like I can bring them into the fold, but I can't continue to be a part of the conversation, even though I'm the reason they want to invest in the first place. I felt very stifled as a creative person. I felt limited in my position. I felt uneasy with the direction I saw the system heading in. And when I spoke about that, and I spoke to other people who had the power to do something about that, giant bullseye on my back. I became a target. I welcomed that pressure, if you will, because it just motivated me to be like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I've given my all to this. I will not be somewhere where I cannot be heard as someone who knows what they're talking about, right? Like I didn't just come up with these ideas without the proper research. I mean, hello, I'm a librarian. It's what we do. And the hurt the sting that's still there a little bit was the fact that the person who did all of that was a Black woman like me.
Yeah, and when it comes from people in our community, it stings that much more and it takes that much longer To heal.
to
Yeah.
heal. In an episode on Black in the Stacks with Dr. Karita Brown, we talked just briefly about the Hillman Talk saga as it related to her latest publication, The Power of the Black Mind. He mentions how when Ida B. Wells and her peers saw a need, they created it. But they didn't do it in a way that was, I think Dr. Brown said something like, everybody now has their own LLC, everybody has their own nonprofit. Whereas previously, you had an overarching entity, right? So you had someone who was the head of the school. Like, I founded it, it was my idea, that's fine. But I'm not a hair care person. So I'm going to go out and find 2 or 3 hairdressers. The historical educators are seeing a need to educate the people who look like them. But instead of just forming their own sort of unit, it was like, no, they worked together to build a great entity. And yes, when that happened, other people saw it, didn't like it, set out to destroy it and create divisiveness, which has carried over for generation to generation, which is why now it's so hard to meld with people who are doing similar things within our own communities. There was an article maybe about 10 years ago or something where this theory about Black people where it's a there can only be one kind of thing. Yep. And so I don't remember who it was in the media, but it was a Black woman, I know that much, but they came out of nowhere and it was just like, they were everywhere. They were on every magazine, every, television show. They were featured in, news articles and dissertations were being written, like they were exalted. And then the media does what it does and they turned and then they broke that person down all the way down. It was like, well, your time is up now. Like you've been reigning high for so long. Yeah. Like we're over you now. We're going to break you and tear you down. That's what it felt like for me. I also had some other things, personal going on that needed my attention. So I sat in silence like I often do, meditated, prayed, however you want to call it. I just asked one question. I was kind of like, is this where it ends for me? Because if so, give me a yes and I will carry forth. I will pull back. I will retreat into myself and I will deal with this job for as long as I can. Mm-hmm. The answer I got back was a hard no. It was loud. It was no. And that was it. I made a plan. I wanted to be out in 4 months. It took 6.
Okay.
And the devastating thing about not hitting that 4-month mark, because I'm a deadlines person, like I'll either meet or beat the deadline. Yeah. I got so frustrated. I got so down on myself because I had so many false leads. And I was just like, maybe the voice was wrong. And I was about to just, again, retreat, protect myself, go into my shell. And I got an email. And that was an email that kind of changed my life. Now, I did get a new job and they laid me off. But, life happens. But I needed that time off. Everything happens for a reason. And I know that people are just like, well, some things happen aren't fair. That's true. I don't disagree with that. But again, they happen for a reason, right? Like somewhere in there is a lesson or a key element of something that you were missing in your life that is now presenting itself. And it's up to you to figure out what it is and how to apply it to your life. One of the things that I cherish and I value is my health and my life. I am currently the age that my best friend was when she suddenly passed away. Mm-hmm. And I think it might have been Kev on stage that said something about the sudden loss of his brother, where it's just like you're forever grieving the person that you used to talk to on a daily basis. You can't talk to them anymore, can't see them anymore. When I'm having one of those days, I'll reach to text and I'm like, I can't. Mm-hmm. Her physical presence is no longer here. And that's as an adult woman, like making friends is hard.
It's hard. It really is.
It's hard,
Oh, it really is. Yeah. Everyone's so, got stuff going on. It's hard to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I have our messages and voicemails and stuff, so I can relish in the memory of it, but I can't get new advice. I can't get current advice, but I value my health and I value my ability to now be to someone else what my best friend was to me. And that's the driving force in keeping me going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll keep you going. Yeah, yeah, making meaning out of those experiences. One day we'll have to have doing some kind of convening
Mhm.
around bringing some people together to talk about it. What you were describing too in my world, like consulting and organizational change work and all that. And in the academy too, we heard that in the literature, like pet the threat. It's been described like, you come in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they love you when you get in there. And then you literally just start
Mhm.
doing your job and
Mhm.
naming the problems becomes creating the problems and then all of the ways. And then also just that there can be only one thing, like a part of even this project too, trying to show people like it's room enough for everybody's out here,
Everyone.
doing the best that they can, choosing. Like I have a friend of mine that's in my mind right now, and their pathway is like in the culinary and how they're bringing about
Mhm.
like equity and justice and stuff. They have this knowledge of cooking, not only
Yeah.
history of traditional dishes and stuff from history, but then also like different health related things. And so they're using their
Mhm.
gifts to do some education around that historically and also like health wise and stuff. Another friend of
Yeah.
mine whose mathematics is their thing, and they look at numbers, working within health systems and
Mhm.
showing different disparities and where we need to dedicate more resources to supporting people. It's something for everybody, but somehow getting back to what you're sharing, like this whole, like, it can be only one thing, that scarcity, like it's only room for one of us to be the special one. Like it's a whole job that has been done on us
Mhm.
with that. And yeah, when it comes from when the harm comes from us, it just hurts so much more. So yeah, we
It
got a
hurts.
lot of work to do, but yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story and the meaning that you're making from it. And even when you brought Kev on stage in, I've just been appreciating a lot of
Mhm.
the like little leadership clips and stuff that he puts out. And that
Mhm.
particular story in particular, I remember seeing you might have seen it in the stand up, but I feel like I saw it on like a video thing when he was talking about it again. But yeah, it took me right back to that time, those people that we love and that process of grief. So thank you for sharing that. Is that your departure? Is that where life after libraries came in for you? Is that led
That
to
is
the creation of
exactly
that?
it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So for context, life after libraries is was my way of venting, just as the name suggests, life after libraries, because I didn't and I still don't know what life looks like after libraries because I am still embedded in the library field in some way. I'm still very much connected to the people. A month, 2 months after my departure, I got a call to be on a panel, to speak about that, and I told them, I was like, "Well, hey, clearly, I don't work in the thing anymore," and they were just like, "Yeah, that makes it even better. Like, now we can hire you without
That's
having to go through all
great.
these different steps." I mean,
Yeah.
so it felt like a little bit of a weight was lifted, but I still had that looming, well, I've got all these student loans, I've got this degree, I've got this experience. Like, what am I going to do with it? How can I still use the things that I learned in library school and apply them to my life now
That's
or
right.
try to make a little bit of money or continue that spirit of service when I'm no longer in a building that requires me to be of service? And so I started Life After Libraries as a way to inform people like, hey, this job may say, documents record specialist, right? In librarian terms, that's a database administrator, right? So there are jobs, positions, and opportunities outside of traditional librarianship. And here's how I got out of that. And, maybe a little bit of what I'm saying and sharing about my journey, my life can help you figure out what it is. I talked about it in another episode of Black in the Stacks, but right now there is a little bit of an exodus of people leaving the library field because of the uncertainty of funding book bans and First Amendment auditors looking to get a reaction and stuff like that. And I've seen specifically First Amendment auditors who just kind of poke and poke and poke, and they want a reaction. And I've seen sometimes where they'll get a reaction.
Okay.
And I'm like, don't do that. Like, don't give them the reaction, first of all. But where is your like library director who hasn't come in and been like, hey, here's a plan, here's a script, here's how we react to First Amendment auditors. And it's universal across every branch within the system, right? Some library systems are just one branch, others have upwards of like 30, 40, 50, right? But the reaction and how they react to something like that should be universal. And it saddens me that so many of them get caught off guard, and now their system is in the news or like making rounds on social media because of a lack of leadership. And so that's a thing that I've been toying with too. Like, where can I use my experience to train up some systems that are lacking in that? It was just fun to be able to speak freely, right? Like, I think people look at going back to this episode where he even said it, that he was the angry black male. Like,
He did.
And he was okay with that. And I was like, I'm not angry, because Black women always get ascribed that angry moniker. And I was like, I'm not angry, but I am motivated. I am fired up. So I can be the motivated librarian. I could be the activated librarian, as you mentioned, and speak freely about these things, because I would be lying if I said I enjoyed my job every day. I don't think anybody enjoys their job every single day. If you do, that's great. Teach the masses, because it's such a hard job. It's such a thankless job. And you have to have empathy to be in librarianship. Empathy is the biggest thing that you need. I also have another thing that I do on TikTok called Shit I Didn't Learn in Library School. I was very raw about that. It didn't teach me that I would have to go and inspect a male bathroom that is now covered in feces, and now I have to shut it down and explain to our patrons who identify as male, like, hey, sorry, we don't have a restroom for you, you know, or make accommodation. You know what I mean? They didn't teach me how to handle seeing a mother who admittedly chose to be unhoused and relies heavily on shelter. Now, this was a story that was shared with me by the mother. Purposely chose to be unhoused to be spiteful to the father, but relied so much on the things in the shelter that she had to ration diapers for her baby. I struggled so much with that. And this was like way beyond I even had ideals of being a mom. Like, that was, I didn't even think that was in the
They didn't say none of this in school when we were
none
studying.
of that was covered. They didn't teach me about handling stalkers. They didn't teach me about handling people who weaponize their entitlement. Right? Well, I know such and such, and I'm going to have your job. Work
the
here.
board's going to hear about
Here's
this.
how you spell my name. And then there were people who were completely unfamiliar with how libraries work. Like, well, where's the number to corporate? What's your manager's name? My manager is here. This is the number here. To the point that it became such a thing of, I'm going to get you in trouble, that I just went ahead and made like little cards that had all the numbers they needed. Ask me how many times somebody actually called.
I bet zero.
But you want to weaponize whatever entitlement or whatever, whomever you know, right? You want to weaponize that into trying to force me into giving you service that goes above and beyond what I can actually do in my power. Like, I can't give you more than what I'm capable of giving, right? That's the thing that, again, that made me feel pigeonholed in my position. I didn't think that I could speak freely enough. I didn't think that I could be me. I was at work a representative of me, which in some cases is not necessarily a bad thing, but because I was the unofficial face of the system, it would not have been Black in the Stacks would not have been possible if I was still working full time in a library. Life after libraries would not exist because I would still be in libraries. I didn't learn in library school. Plausible, but again, even the fact that I, in some of my social media posts, there's profanity,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, she's a librarian. They're not supposed to cuss.
Mhm.
They don't drink.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. A lot of them.
And
Conference, I mean, it's
and
like,
sometimes they're the supervisor. You know what I mean? Like they're
yes,
the
sir.
leader. You know what I mean?
They are the
Mhm.
leader. Yeah. This is the example you want me to follow,
Right.
right? Like we're not a monolith. Like librarianship is not a monolith. The stereotype around, I can't tell you how many times while I was working at a desk that like, do you like working here? I'm like, it's okay. Oh, you must love to read. I don't have time to read.
Right.
Like I don't have time to read. I'm helping you right now. So we're in this interaction, right? I'm not,
Mhm.
right? Um, and then I got a job that actually let me do some of that, which if they had paid me more, I probably would have still been there. It was one of the best jobs that I had working in a library because it was public facing. Like a lot of the stuff that we did were events and author talks and book signings and lectures. I curated art exhibits for local artists and stuff like in that job. If they had paid me more, I would have still been there. But I wouldn't be here.
Hey, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. So
As you're describing that though, it's like a catalog going there though. You got the TikToks, you got the Life After Libraries, we have Black in the Stacks. As you're thinking about, how can I be of service to people? There's a lane there and there's an audience out
yeah,
there who would love. And then coming from you specifically, like, oh yeah, she could tell us what's happening. Like, cause this is some stuff. They might listen to that and say, you know what, yeah, we're not talking about this, but they're hearing it from you, so they're better prepared in that. Oh, there's so much
yeah.
where the positive parts of representation can really be supportive and helpful for folks. So I appreciate you sharing those. So with Black in the Stacks then, and starting that, say a little bit more about like what some of the things were that motivated you to do that. What were you hoping to accomplish?
So around when did I start that job? So like around 2012, the way that Bookstagram is now thing or book talk with TikTok and everything like that, like book bloggers or vloggers weren't really a thing. So my very first like soiree into an iteration of Black in the Stacks was called The Right Life, WRITE. And I essentially was doing the same thing, but I was primarily focused on authors. And so with that one, I didn't limit myself to people from the African American or African diaspora. I discussed literary works that were written for, by, or about people of color. So it was broad, but it was niche, right?
Very nice talk.
They've probably purged it from YouTube right now, but I covered book signings and stuff. There was a book signing, I forget what it's called. Is it 143 by Music Soul Child? I think it was. I interviewed a couple of different people. I promoted like library or book signing events by people of color that were just kind of around the southeastern region. If it was someone that I knew was going to get like a big draw, like God rest him, and Eric Jerome Dickey that was doing like a nationwide tour, I would highlight all of those things. And they weren't like readily available for people of color. Like I had to dig a lot. But in that time, I got a lot of advanced reader copies by people of color. I got, interview opportunities. We got sponsorship opportunities for the job I had at that time. So I was, like I was in the thick of it early on. And then I left that job and it became harder to maintain while I was doing the school librarian thing. But in that dip of like me not doing it anymore, it skyrocketed. Like people from out, it just came out of nowhere. Like, oh, I
Wow.
talk about books, I do book reviews, and this. I'm just like, what the hell? Like I was just doing this, but I was like, again, not a big. It's fine, not a big deal. I'll make my own way. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I always do.
There's room for all of us.
There's room for all of us. But yeah, I noticed that I would listen to different literary podcasts, right? Or library centric podcasts, whatever. And they would talk to everybody. Like it didn't matter. But I also noticed that they were missing Black people. And so I was like, I want to talk to someone who I know has a story or I feel like they have a story but aren't a big name to get people to draw them in my state. And I mean, I guess technically nationwide, because I've gotten calls as far as like California, Texas, Ohio, Kentucky,
Okay.
Florida, Alabama, Texas, Montana, which really shocked me because I was like, huh? But I wouldn't consider myself a big name in the library world. Other people might, but I wouldn't consider myself that. But I have a story. I know what it's like to cold reach out to someone on a whim, like fingers crossed that they, number one, even read it. But then number two, it's like, oh, they read it. Like, where's my response? Even if it's a no, like the fact that they took time to read it, think about it. I'm really good at writing crafty emails. I'm really good at explaining why they should want to participate in this and how it's beneficial for not just the library, but for them as well. And 9 times out of 10, I've always gotten a yes. Like the one time I had a no, it was because the person ended up going to meet with a leader down in Cuba.
Right.
I can't,
Couldn't be in
right?
two
Like you're a
places at once.
political, like you can't be in two places at once. I completely understand. If I had a choice between, making international news or doing this little library event, I'm gonna make international news event
Yeah.
later. Like this is a once in a lifetime. So it was something was missing. And it didn't dawn on me until I did my first interview with Tracy D. Hall, where the thing that I felt like was missing was my voice and how I approach things and how I think about things and the questions that I want to ask. The interviewing authors is always tell me about the book and the characters and nuance, right? Like those are the general questions, but I want to know more. Yes, the goal is to tell people that you wrote a book, but like, why did you write the book?
Yeah.
How, you know what I mean? Like, you just felt like this was a good story and you wanted to write it, or like, what is the catalyst behind that?
Yeah.
I always try to ask, like nuanced questions and stuff that other people wouldn't ask because I'm curious about it. So if I'm curious about it, then guarantee there's like 1 or 2 other people that are curious about it too. Someone asked me like, well, how's your podcast doing? I don't know. I don't check stats. I see them when I log in and I upload the episodes, but I'm not obsessively like, oh, it's gotten this many views. And
Yeah.
I can't do that because that defeats the purpose of putting it out there and letting it organically find its way to the people
That's right.
it needs to find its way to. There's a message in there for someone somewhere. So
That's right. What would you say to fellow creatives, people who they may want to actually launch something like you have? And again, maybe it might not be the same thing, but whatever it is, that idea is that they have, and they've been between contemplation and implementation. What would you say to folks who are sort of on the cusp of should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah, it's been said before, but do it scared. Do the hard thing scared, right? I hesitated so much to get on TikTok before it was TikTok. I hesitated so much to do Vine when Vine was a thing. Like most people, I joined TikTok in the middle of the pandemic because what else did I have to do? I noticed that there was something missing in that niche librarian Black girl, born and raised in the South, dealing with things from the perspective of librarianship. I started by just kind of making fun of the library field. Within jokes and humor, there is some monochrome of truth. And that's what it was. I was like, well, this is missing. I think I'm funny. Maybe other people think I'm funny too, or maybe other people will feel that way. And I would get like a couple thousand views, which, to me was like, oh, I'm doing it. The very first time I went viral, it's because I listed the statistic for Black library, or I think it was something like, did you know the library field is 89% white? A statistic that has not changed since 1993, 92. But I used the bumper sound from the show Rugrats, the original one, where they,
yeah.
And so because it was so short, right? Like it forced people to they recognize the sound. So that's one view. They're reading the words, that's 2. they're looking at me and then rereading the words, that's 3. And then they're reading more words, which is, we need librarians of color, like join the field, ask me how, something like, I don't even remember what it was. But that thing took off like a rocket. I got called so many racist because, like, you're racist, you're this, you're that. Why do you always have to make it about race? Well, I didn't do the survey.
Yeah.
I went and found a credible source that conducted the survey, and this is what it is. Even the percentage I think I quoted for Black librarians at that time was only like 7.5%. Like, it has not broken into a double-digit statistic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a personal passion too, right? I want to, and I've worked with a close colleague and friend who has her own nonprofit. I know we're talking about everybody and their nonprofits, but
that's okay.
I've spoken with her and picked her brain about how she started her organization and everything, because I want to figure out a way to contribute to making that single-digit percentage for Black librarians a double-digit, even if it's just the flat-out 10%. It's very hard to do that right now with the state of the field and the state of our world. I would say do it scared. Just put it out there, see what happens. I was very fortunate to have Tracy D. Hall as my first guest. And she literally said, she was like, I'm doing it because you asked me. I'm doing it because I want to help. Again, that spirit of service, that wanting to help. Make sure that you are not setting your sights or your goals for vanity reasons, if that makes sense. I don't check statistics. I don't know how many people listen. I don't know how many downloads. Like, all of that is irrelevant to me. What's relevant to me is that I fulfill my job as the podcast host and craft a compelling story and pull that information out of whomever I'm talking to, whether it's a good friend of mine who was a branch manager that did this revolutionary thing with graphic novels. Her key story was that she, like most people, stumbled into librarianship and found their way into, for her, it was leadership and management. She had no intention of being the person in charge of other people. She went to school for filmmaking. She wanted to be a screenwriter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Found her way into that, has a love of graphic novels and film and television, has that knowledge, has that background. And because of that, has easily found her way into talking to local politicians, national politicians, and people within the community who have a desire to want to help build up their libraries. The other thing I do is I live by the Hosty Manifesto. And the very first line of that is, "This is your life. This is your life." The line after that, I believe, is, "Do what you love and do it often." And usually that's where I stop. Everything else is just filler. It's very long, but this is your life. Do what you love and do it often. If it's in you to do it, just do it and let the chips fall where they may, because guaranteed somebody somewhere, whether locally, nationally, globally, will find meaning in whatever it is that you do, as long as you put your heart and soul and passion behind it.
Now, what would you want listeners to take away from your sharing today? And then what actions, if any, would you encourage them to take? And I know you've said a few things, but if you have any more to share on that.
I think the biggest takeaway is that I am, while accomplished, still a work in progress. So everything that I have said and shared today is from lived experiences and lessons that I've learned throughout my many professional years. But I am still finding my way to what I aspire to be and where I see myself. I am still taking every opportunity presented to me as long as it works for me. And I'm doing the hard things scared, like I mentioned, right? Even doing this show with you is different, right?
Yeah.
Because I've done presentations, I've done other shows, I've done panels, I've done interviews with local press, right? But I was doing it from a lens of the work that I did in libraries, right? But this is personal. This is something for me that has been in me for a very long time. And it's been a long time coming. And I think right now is a perfect opportunity to strike while the iron is hot, so to speak. I remember attending a talk with Spike Lee, and someone asked him about film school, and he flat out said, he was like, I went to film school to get access to the equipment because I was too poor to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We have cell phones. There are many computers in a pocket. If you can find the right apps, you can create something. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Every now and then I say something that some people would say is inspirational and smart, but I'm still learning, and I'm not above going back to basics if it means in the long run that I'm doing something that will not drastically change my life, but change my life for the better so that I can keep pursuing and doing the things that I love.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you mentioned your mentor earlier on in your storytelling, a variety of different reasons. I'm appreciating that. It's like, one, supporting you, and you were able to get into that school. And then once you got in, you're getting A's and all this stuff, which to me is a callback to what you were saying about standardized testing. It's like, who are we leaving out by continuing some of these processes that were at the outset designed to be barriers to full participation in these different fields? Appreciating that you named your mentor and had someone to vouch and support in that way. But who were people, or experiences, it could also be literature, books, that have contributed to the way you approach your work today? And
I don't know if there is a single specific person or people, but I mentioned her earlier, but Demetria L. Lucas is author, journalist, life coach, just all around person. She has a podcast now too. I've admired her openness. I've admired how she has, again, done the hard thing scared and has been very vocal about it. I follow her quite a bit. Tracy Ellis Ross is on her solo traveling journey right now, but has been very vocal about injustices and using her celebrity and notoriety for positive things and just being her full, free, carefree Black girl self. I've had the pleasure of meeting Stacey Abrams before the historic or double historic runs that she did here in Georgia. And I got a chance to actually interview her for a project, for a job, but to watch her progress. And a lot of people didn't know that she, at the time, was writing romance fiction under a pen name, but I knew that because Librarian.
Yeah.
And so I asked her about that off camera. She's like, oh my God, like nobody really knew. And I was like, I know, but it is what it is. So yeah, like Stacey Abrams, of course, and her continued efforts to make voter registration fair and equitable. There's so many people, and you can never just like pick.
Yeah.
I had a chance to work with or do a project for Kathleen Cleaver. So I got a chance to meet Kathleen Cleaver. Once the project was over, she came and picked up a copy of the final one. I distinctly remember her just thanking me so much, and she cut my face only the way an elder can do. It was just, you're wonderful. Like, and that's a civil rights icon, like telling little old me that I'm something, that I did good. I look at my family that has been through everything imaginable and still come out on the other side of it. I look at my kiddo who is coming into their own as a little person, but has big ideas and opinions and resilience and a confidence that I did not have at that age. As far as librarians go, I mentioned her, Tracy D. Hall, watching her journey, being the first African-American to lead the American Library Association, and then again, leaving to go on and do more things. I saw myself in that. They consider him to be the godfather of librarianship. So E.J. Josie, reading about, the barriers that he broke down and the discrimination that he faced and stuff. My current supervisor, I do strategic marketing for an education firm. My current supervisor is exactly who I would want to emulate if I ever got back into an administrative position. Because she's so free and so open and so raw. I've only ever had maybe 2 other supervisors that were that way, that truly believe that there is a thing called work-life balance and actively encouraged to take it. She is not a Black woman,
Sometimes,
and
sometimes it's that way.
sometimes, right?
Sometimes it's that way. Ain't that
Sometimes it's
something?
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by my peers that are still in this library service world. Some of the stories that they share of things that are happening right now, I don't live in regrets. I don't really have them because, again, everything happens for a reason. But if I had one, it would be that I did not apply to be the director of my former system when the job came available. I still have that wanting and that need to serve, but the optics around that would have been way more messy and I probably would have left anyway. So from that perspective, yeah, I did the right thing by not going for it, but I do sometimes have that what if, what if? But again, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. So
There we go. There we go. What would you say to them or about them in terms of just speaking to their impact in your life?
I tell them thank you, that I value them, that I love them, that even if they think that no one is watching, I am. Even if they think that no one will continue to support them, I do. Even if it's from the shadows, even if it's in the form of donating or time or just showing up, I do that. I carry their words with me. I don't have it with me because I'm packing, but I have a journal where I keep inspirational quotes and things that people have said. To me, I keep those things and I read them on a daily basis just to kind of keep that positivity and motivation going. Um, I would say to them, especially the elders that I mentioned, I know that it was not easy, going through what they went through. And so I appreciate the foundation that they laid. They laid the foundation, yes, but they also, when it was their time, took a knee, so to speak, and allowed for other people to come and sit on their shoulders to lift them up to another level. So I appreciate the foundation being laid for them to be comfortable enough to, you know, lay their burdens down, so to speak, and let somebody else come and sit on their shoulders and pick up where they left off and continued for that. And so as an activated librarian, I'm proud to carry on where others have left off.
All right. And that visual too was everything. Really appreciate you sharing that connection right there. It's like, all right, laying the foundation and then, we get to be on the shoulders. Yeah. And continue to work. Appreciate the sharing. So now we're at a place where I have a 3-prompt thing that I ask people to do. And I'll just mention the prompt, the first part, and you finish the sentence. And it could be whatever you want to say, as little as much you want to say about it. And it's a snapshot in time. It could change, but it's just where you are right now. The first prompt is finish the statement. True social justice is possible
when we work together, when we set actionable and attainable goals, when we trust the process, and when we speak freely and with truth and passion.
Okay. My approach to social justice is shaped by.
My approach to social justice is shaped by the community that surrounds me, but also the community that supports me and the community that shuns me. I am well aware that I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I am who I am because of my community. And I'm okay with being locked in the areas and by the people who have my best intentions at heart.
Understanding and sharing our social justice origin stories is important because
If we don't do it, who will? Right? If we don't do it, who will? Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. And it's up to the people who carry those stories or people who have a passion for wanting to hear and promote those stories to find those people and pull those stories out of them. Oral histories have been in existence since the beginning of time. And we are, in essence, losing the tradition of storytellers. We are losing the traditions of griots. We are losing those historical recountings for whatever reason. There are a whole host of reasons. And we're not doing, and I've talked about this on an episode of Black in the Stacks, but are we doing a good job documenting and maintaining our own histories, right? As they are actively being either censored or erased entirely. If you have the ability to do so, share your story. If you are not the person who wants their story shared, but you want to talk to people who are willing and have that ability to draw those stories out, do that. Do the hard thing scared. Do the hard thing scared. Put it out there. You never know what'll happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And my honest hope is that this storytelling, you mentioned oral histories, and yes, this project is rooted in something so much deeper, and connected to something so much deeper. So I so appreciated you naming that. I'm hoping that these stories will last beyond us. I'm hoping they'll last longer than we do. To imagine generations from now, if folks will come across this recording many years from now, is there anything you'd like to share with them or anything you'd want them to know? Anything you want to pass to them?
I think because I am currently raising the future generation, I would want them to know that their best was good enough. Their best is good enough. I would want them to know that not every battle is theirs. I would want them to know that they don't have to pick up a battle that does not feel authentic or genuine to them for the sake of saying that they did something. I would want them to know that this generation did what we could with what we had, and that they should do the same. We took it as far as we could. There are people who continue that battle, but I think it's Jill Scott in a song where she says everything ain't for everybody, but I tried anyway, right? The trying is what's important. The seeing something and not taking action and not at the very least trying is what I think pigeonholes a lot of people and paralyzes them into fear and paralyzes them into just maintaining, right? But sometimes that's all you can do. And that is perfectly okay.
With that, I will say thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, and being a part of
And thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I saw the thing and I said, I just had to reach out when I saw, and I listened too. I saw what you said. And I listened. So it goes back to me is like what you're saying earlier about you put the message out there, draw out what you need to from the guests, and the message will land where it needs to land. I'm so happy that it landed with me and that we were able to meet and connect.
And you are, speaking of flowers, like you are doing important work as someone who's only new-ish to this, but still seasoned. It is great to see that there is room for more than one of us. And if there's ever any way that I can support going forward, I am a DM, an email away without hesitation.
Same here. And I already have some things percolating too. So thank you so much for being here. So Marquita Gooch, everybody, Marquita Gooch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and subscribe to Social Justice Origin Stories wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch video episodes on YouTube at Social Justice Origin Stories, and I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. Video episodes are also available on the project website, socialjusticeoriginstories.com. I'd love to hear about how you're engaging with the stories. Share your thoughts at socialjusticeoriginstories.com/contact or by emailing stories@socialjusticeoriginstories.com. To support the work of Social Justice Origin Stories, consider becoming a monthly patron. Your contributions will help keep this research going and support its mission. Visit patreon.com/socialjusticeoriginstories to learn more and to make a contribution. Again, that's patreon.com/socialjusticeoriginstories. You can start or stop anytime. Social Justice Origin Stories is edited, hosted, and produced by me, Rolando Thompkins-Jones. Many thanks to our storyteller this week and the many storytellers who have contributed to this project. And thank you for joining me this week. Take care.